Coming from the farthest reaches of the universe to challenge the worst toy repairs on Earth is the most powerful hero ever, toy-polloi. Parental guidance. This video contains scenes of LEGO destruction.
Hello and welcome to another video from toy-polloi, and today we are making a repair on a figure that I've never seen before and never had in my collection before, so it's going to be an all new figure to work on, but I'm hoping that fixes I've shown on other toys will work just as well on this one. And this figure is Ggripptogg from the Power Lords toy line that were made by Revell back in 1982. Now this is a toy line that I don't see particularly often here in the UK. In fact, this is the entirety of my collection. Over the years I've managed to find two different versions of Adam Power so that I can display him in both his sort of modes, with his face at the front and with the sort of blue version at the front. I've also managed to find a carded version of Adam Power, and until very recently that was all I had. But I was very kindly sent this Ggripptogg by Sean, and as you can see he's got a busted head, so we're going to try and fix that today, because the cool feature on these toys is that you could swap them around and they had different faces and different bits on them. So let's see what we can do with this figure and see if we can actually repair him. Before we get on to the repair, let's take a quick look at this packaged Power Lords figure. This is Adam Power. I picked this up quite a few years ago. As you can see, it's a little bit of a faded box, but you get to see the figure really nicely, and you get to see all of the other toys that were in the line. So these were made by Revell back in 1982. Each figure had its own cool little feature. With Adam Power, basically the top part of his body would flip around. So sometimes you would see him like this as Adam Power, and by pressing a button on the back, it would flip around and you'd see a blue version of the body. It is a pretty nice feature, and generally it works pretty well. So you can see if I have him like that, it's Adam Power. Press the button on the back and it flips around, and his hands have got sort of extra thumbs on it to make it sort of work so that you can hold weapons on it. They are really nice looking figures. If I turn it over, I can show you all the different ones that were available. They're all very different looking, which is what was so cool about them. A lot of times when you get to action figures, they're basically the same thing sort of over and over again. With these, they are all very different. And the figure we're going to be fixing today is this one here. This is Ggripptogg. I'm not quite sure I'm pronouncing his name right, because there's a double G, a double P, and then a double G in it. But to me, that looks like it probably should be pronounced as Ggripptogg. Now he is a four-fisted brute, and as you can see on the one that I've got here, sadly his head has snapped off, but I reckon it should be a fairly straightforward fix using sort of techniques that I've shown on other toy lines. But I've never worked on these before, and sometimes you find issues with different toy lines just because of the plastic that's used. I can see here the red plastic is a little bit sort of brittle looking, which is why that head has snapped off, but every other part of him looks pretty reasonable. So let's just give it a go and see if we can repair this figure, because it would be nice to get him on display and have it so that we can flip his head around and see both versions of that. So let's get on with the project and see what we can do. So here we have Ggripptogg, and as you can see his head is broken pretty cleanly off there. That's the remnants of the peg in his body, and it's a fairly neat break, so I'm hoping we can just use a piece of Lego to reattach that. But I've never worked on these toys before, and the plastic on them doesn't feel very forgiving. Often when you're sort of drilling into certainly the limbs of figures and the heads, that plastic is going to be sort of a little bit more soft and a bit rubbery. This is really very rigid plastic, and I can see that's probably the reason why this has snapped off, because it doesn't have much give to it. So even just a little bit of force pushing this sort of side to side would make it snap. And certainly as this toy is now, what, nearly 40 years old, yeah, the plastic's going to have got quite brittle as well. So we will be trying Lego today. I've just got to give it a go really. So the first thing to do is actually to drill some holes into this. We are going to be using a Lego antenna or aerial, which is this piece here. I'll put the number at the bottom of the screen. This is probably my favourite piece for fixing all sorts of toys. It's just an incredibly useful piece. It is exactly 3mm in diameter, so we need to drill 3mm diameter holes into both these pieces. And I can see here that on the head, that is going to be no issue whatsoever. Let's just check the neck post and see how much sort of leeway we have around it. That original neck post is probably about 5mm across, so we've got about 2mm all the way round, which should be plenty. Now, the issue I can sort of see with something like this is I have no idea what the construction is on the body, and it could be that when I push on this neck post, it goes inside, and I'll have to change the way I actually go about fixing this. But what I'm hoping happens is that when I drill into this, this post doesn't go down at all. There's possibly a panel or something that's holding that piece in place, and we can just insert the bit of Lego into it. But we will only find that out once we start drilling. So because that's going to be a bit awkward and the easier drilling is on the head, let's do this first. So in my little handy drill here, I've got a 2mm drill bit, so I'm going to drill a pilot hole into that and go in Well, it doesn't actually need to be a huge amount in, maybe sort of 6 or 7 millimeters. Once I've got the 2mm hole in, I then have my pin vise here with a 3mm drill bit in, which is the same diameter as the Lego piece, and we can again get that hole drilled as well. But I just want to do a test on this first, because this is going to be the easiest bit to hold and sort of drill at the same time, and we'll see how that goes. And then once we've worked that out, we'll have a go at drilling into this. So let's start by drilling a hole in here and see what happens. Okay, that's the sort of test hole drill, so that's the 2mm hole. It's not the most forgiving of plastics actually, it's really quite hard to drill into it, so I'm not quite sure whether I'll be able to drill in with the pin vise, because I'm going to be doing that by hand. But you can get the drill in there, it just doesn't feel as forgiving as other plastics. So now that we've got that pilot hole drilled, let's try and drill in the 3mm hole and see if we can get the Lego piece in. Again, that may be a little bit more awkward. With the slightly sort of more rubbery plastic, there's a bit of leeway when you push the Lego piece in and it sort of expands around and grips it. With this, we're going to have to make sure the hole is certainly big enough for this to go in, which means it's going to be a little bit sort of more sort of awkward to do and have to have a little bit more fine tuning. It won't be as forgiving as the normal sort of plastic. But yeah, let's give this a go. Here is the 3mm drill bit. Let's just see what happens. Okay, not too bad. Certainly gone in. It just doesn't feel the easiest to work with. Let's see if we can fit this piece of Lego in. Oh yeah, that's a really tight fit. So I'm going to have to work on that hole a bit longer to sort of widen it so that that piece of Lego will go in. I'm still going to be using the 3mm drill bit. I'm just going to sort of bend it and push it around a bit so that I try and enlarge the hole just enough that we can get that Lego piece in. So a little bit more fine tuning. It should fit in, but it's just not the easiest of things to work on. Yeah, actually, there we go. That Lego piece is in. That's not too bad. It's a push fit at the moment. Maybe we can get away without having to put any glue on it, but that will depend on this. If I drill into this and it goes into the body, that's going to cause some issues. So let me clean up my desk and we'll have a go at drilling into the main part of the body. Now to try the exact same process on the neck post in the body. As I said, my only sort of concern with this is that this post actually sort of pushes inside the body, and then we'll have to go about fixing this another way. But it may not happen. We just don't know at this stage. So I'm going to drill the 2mm pilot hole, see how that goes, and then again I will drill the 3mm hole using my pin vise. So yeah, let's just see what happens. Right, and there we go. That is what I was worried about happening. The whole thing has popped inside, so we are going to have to work out a different way to fix this. It's still going to be Lego, but I now need to put something there that we can actually then attach something to. So yeah, it's going to be a slightly different fix.
Toy-polloi. That is incorrect. Try again.
Another quick dive into my box of Lego parts, and I've got this black Lego Technic pin. Now there are lots of different colours of these Technic pins, and they have sort of different features to them. The grey one actually has a sort of a ridge inside it, which means that you can't put a Lego antenna all the way through it. It gets blocked at the middle. But with the black one, it doesn't have that ridge inside, so we can actually insert this aerial all the way through. So we can actually continue to use my original plan on the head, but we'll just slightly modify how it goes into the body. And the great thing again with Lego is you just often have the sort of happenstance that the sizes of the holes and the sizes of the bits of Lego just work together. So this Lego pin here will just fit into that hole there. So all I've got to do is modify the top of it. We'll take half of this away, cut it in half, and then we can glue that in there. and then the aerial piece will fit in there, so we can still attach the head. So it's all going to work. I just wasn't sure how this would react. You can hear the broken piece is now rattling inside. Unfortunately, that will always be rattling inside. I'm not going to open this figure up to try and remove it. So yeah, let's just modify this. I need to get my plastic nippers out, or a scalpel. We'll just cut the top of that off, and then we can glue that in. I'm going to say just a little bit of super glue will hold that in place. And then that should be enough to get the head back on. So let's do some modifying of this second Lego piece. So that is the Lego piece modified. You can see I've just cut the top off and then sanded it so it's nice and flat. All I'm going to do is put a very small amount of super glue just around the sort of top edge of this. It really doesn't need to be a huge amount. You're just sort of wanting something to hold it in place, and yeah, a tiny blob of super glue on there will be enough. I can then pop that into the hole like so. I'm going to try and make it sort of nice and neat and lined up, even though no one's ever going to see this. I'll just pop that in. We'll let that super glue go off, and then we can sort out the head and get that fitted. But yeah, that is going to work really nicely. On the head, I really don't think we need to glue it because it's going to be such a strong push fit. If I push the remnants of this aerial in, that really is held in there pretty strongly. So all I've got to do is actually just chop off the end of the aerial that we don't need, which is a sort of the Lego pip piece. So I've just got my plastic nippers here. I'll just trim that down and then do a little bit of tidying up of this end just to neaten it up. A bit of sanding, and we can actually leave that post really long because it's going to go all the way through that Lego piece that's in there. And that's probably all we need to do. So once the glue on the body is dry, we can fit this head and see what it looks like. Everything has now had time to dry, so let's do a quick test and see if this actually works. So that's the new piece of Lego that's glued in. We've got the antenna there stuck in the bottom of the head, and you can see that head fits on really nicely, and we can turn it around. The head is also not likely to fall out. You can hear the other bit of plastic rattling, but that head is really firmly held in. In fact, I can hold it by the head and it's not coming out. So that is a really nice fix. It's not quite the fix I was expecting at the start of this project, but that's what happens sometimes when you're working on new toys. You have to sort of modify your plans as you go along. And in this instance, the bit of Lego into the head worked perfectly well, but I sort of suspected that that piece of plastic in there would fall in, so we've had to change the plans. But as you can see, that figure is now ready for display. So there we go, that is it for this project. It's been really fun to learn about these toys. As I say, sometimes when you start a fix, things don't go according to plan, and you just have to sort of modify what you're doing as you go. But with Lego, there's generally always a way of repairing it. And as you can see on this one, I was initially trying to use one piece of Lego, and in the end I used two pieces of Lego, but I've still got the same result, and I've got a figure that can be displayed really nicely with the other two Power Lords that I have. I need to say a massive thank you to Sean for very kindly sending this figure in. It's been fun to work on. They are not the sort of toys I see particularly often, but certainly it's a toy line I would like to collect more of, so I'm hoping to find more in future. If you've enjoyed this video, then make sure to hit the subscribe button and tap the bell to be notified each time I upload a new video. And if you've really enjoyed it and want to help me out here at toy-polloi, then why not think about becoming a patron of the channel. You get early access to all of my restoration videos, plus access to an exclusive video series called On the Cutting Mat, where I show projects and restorations that you won't see anywhere else. So have a think about that, and thanks for watching.
Thanks for watching toy-polloi. Subscribe for more great videos.